Welcome students to the next lecture in the Industrial and Biotechnology course for MSc students. Now today we have discussed about the fermentation processes, the bioprocesses, their control mechanisms, how we can optimize, how we can select the microbes for the different processes. Now today we are going to discuss about the downstream processes. Now, as you have understood, and we have gone through the previous lectures also, the all the efforts, all the practices or the operations that we take up before the fermentation of the product, that is before the synthesis or the production of the product, whatever steps we take up, that is like the formulation of the media, selection of the microbe, designing of the fermenters, and then seeding of the inoculum, and then the production of the inoculum, and large scale growth of the microbes, and then optimization of the conditions where the uh, microbes can easily grow so as to produce the optimum concentration of a desirable product. So all those steps, they contribute to the upstream processing. Now when the product has been formed, and we want to isolate and purify that product after the fermentation process has been completed, then whatever operations or the steps or practices that are taken up, they conform to the downstream processing. So we are going to discuss today about the downstream processing. What are the different steps involved there, what will be a typical downstream process that we are trying to understand in today's lecture, and then in the forthcoming lectures we will discuss each and every step in detail. So first we need to understand the definition of the downstream processing. Now it describes the series of operations that are required to take the biological materials such as cells, tissue, culture fluid or plant tissues, and derive from them a pure and homogeneous protein product. So whatever operations that we are doing, undertaking to isolate a homogeneous product from a living substance, maybe a cell, or maybe from the broth in which these cells have been cultured, or from the plant tissues, or from any of their derivatives, all those operations, the series of those operations are described as downstream processing. Now, the factors that influence the downstream processing, or the choice of the downstream processes, is the bioprocess itself. That is, what kind of reaction or what kind of process was taking place. What whether it is a synthetic process for some kind of enzyme for or some acid, or what it is, or it is for the production of a biomass, all those factors will affect the downstream processing. Then another factor is the raw material that was being used, that is the material, the substrate on which the microbes will grow. That raw material also determines the choice of the downstream process. Then the specifications of the final product, that is whether the product has a defined purity standard, how much purity can be established, or what are the physical characteristics or the chemical characteristics of the final product that need to be achieved. On depending on those specifications, also the downstream processing will be selected. Then when the product has been derived, and it has to be processed further, such as it may be you formulated or it may be used in situ application such as polymerization, then uh, we have to consider those factors also, where the intended use of the product will be, whether it is going indirectly as a raw material for another process, that we have to consider, or whether it is for the consumption purpose. Then the another criteria for the selection is the type of microorganism that is being used, with, whether it is a filamentous fungi, it is an yeast or a bacteria, that also we need to consider when we are selecting a downstream process. Then the location of the product, that is whether it is being produced inside the cell, that is an intracellular product, or whether it is being secreted into the fermentation broth, the media, that also needs to be considered. Then what will be the characteristics, the chemical and the physical properties of the product, that also we need to consider. The choice of the fermentation substrate, the choice of the fermentation process, whether it is a submerged process or a solid state process, that, or as well as the target application, that is the purity specifications, they all influence the decision for the specific choice of a downstream process. Then in some cases the pre-treatment of the material, that is the digestion or the removal of inhibitors, also becomes necessary, so that we get a cleaner broth and better fermentation results. This will in turn lower down the cost of the downstream processing. The choice of unit operations for the downstream processing also is influenced by the intended application of the final product, whether it is for human consumption, whether it is for feed consumption, it has to be used for a clinical purpose, or as a dietary supplement, or as a raw material for another process, that also determines the choice of the downstream process. Further, the nature of the contaminants can also be a determinant in the selection of a downstream process. The type of the target metabolite and thus its chemical and physical characteristics also have an impact on the designing of the downstream process. Now these characteristics may be include like your polarity, the acid dissociation constant, the sensitivity or the solubility of the target metabolite. Now the typical downstream process will involve the steps like cell disruption, solid liquid separation, concentration, purification, formulation, and that will give rise to your final product. So these steps will be decided whether will be, as I have discussed, the factors that will decide what steps we need to include in the downstream process will depend on the various characteristics of the media, of the microbes, of the product, and the process itself. So in case the product is an extracellular product, then we can directly go to the solid liquid separation stage. If the product is an intracellular product, that is it is within the cell membrane structure or cell wall structure, then we have to first remove the we have to lyse the cell or disrupt the cell membrane or the cell wall structure so that the product is released. So in that case, first the step will be a cell disruption step, which can be achieved by chemical, physical, enzymatic or mechanical methods. After the cell disruption has been achieved and in case of both the kinds of products, that is extracellular as well intracellular, then the solid fragments, that is maybe your dead cell mass or any solid particles from the remnants of the media, they are removed by the solid liquid separation. And the processes that we can possibly use are the centrifugation, filtration, extraction and sedimentation. The next step is the concentration of the product. So if it is in the large volumes, then the handling will be difficult. So as to ease down the handling of the substance of the product, the product needs to be concentrated, and this can be achieved by evaporation, ultrafiltration, adsorption or precipitation. After the concentration, the purification of the product has to be done, and that can be possibly done by chromatographic techniques. Now the product has been concentrated, it has been purified, and it needs to be formulated for further use, and this can be done by freeze drying or spray drying, and this will give the final product for any kind of further applications. Now, as we have discussed both the extracellular product and the intracellular product, in both the cases the solid particles are generated, maybe in the form of the cell debris or the some kind of excretory product from the cell, or maybe some of the remnants of the used media content. So we have to separate these solid substances from the liquid media. Now it is generally achieved in the following ways, that is first by filtration. Now here we can separate out easily the filamentous fungi and the bacteria. The techniques of filtration used are your surface filtration, depth filtration, centrifugal filtration, rotating drum vacuum filtration. Now where we have to continuously separate out the particles, and the filtration is not supporting the separation step, in those cases we can use centrifugation as the separation technique. It may be used for bacteria and protein precipitates. The more easy simple techniques like flocculation and flotation can also be used for small bacterial cells which are difficult to separate even by centrifugation. Now in flocculation, the cells are aggregated, which may be induced to aggregate by any inorganic salt, minerals or hydrocolloids or other organic polyelectrolytes. In case the flocculation isn't effective, then very minute gas bubbles are made by sparging, and this or by release of overpressure or by electrolysis. Now in case the gas bubbles need to absorb and surround the cell, then raising the gas bubbles to the surface of the media, they form the foam, and these solid particles then adsorb to the surface of the cell, and they float on the surface, and we can separate out the froth or the foam from the surface of the liquid media. Now where this process has to be done for extracting your intracellular products, there we have to disrupt the microbial cells, and this becomes difficult because the microbial cells are very small in size, they have a rigid cell wall and a high osmotic pressure inside the cells. So the disruption of the cells is generally achieved by mechanical processes or by lysis or by drying. In mechanical cell disruption, it involves the use of shear forces, example like colloid mill, ball mill grinder, etc., or a homogenizer, or a ultrasonic disruptor. Then by drying also, here the cells are dried by adding the cells into a huge amount of cold acetone and then extracted using the buffer or the salt solution. The lysis of the microbial cells may be achieved by chemical means as well, by salt or surfactants, osmotic shock, freezing, or lytic enzymes like your lysozymes. Then next step is the extraction process. Now when the product has been obtained in the fermentation broth or a solvent, then the product has to be recovered from the group of compounds from a mixture or from solvents into a solvent phase. Now this is usually achieves both the separation of the particles as well as the concentration of the product. The process of extraction is frequently useful for the recovery of antibiotics and most of the lipophilic substances. The process of extraction is achieved by liquid-liquid extraction or by whole broth extraction or by aqueous multiphase extraction. Next is isolation. Some of the product concentration may occur during the extraction step itself. So it is the isolation is generally achieved by evaporation, as in continuous flow evaporator or falling film evaporator, thin film evaporator, or by spray dryers. Or it may be achieved by membrane filtration like microfiltration, ultrafiltration, reverse osmosis, or electrodialysis. Ion exchange resins can also be utilized like your dextrans cellulose resin or the polyamines or the acrylates for the isolation of the product. Different adsorption resins like polar resin, that is sulfoxides or the amides, or the apolar resins like styrene, divinyl benzene, or the semipolar resins like acrylic ester may be also utilized for the isolation of the product. Next, when the isolation has been achieved, after that the product has to be purified. Now the aim of the purification step is to recover the product in the highest purified state. It is achieved by crystallization of the product and is mostly used for the low molecular mass compounds like antibiotics. It can also be achieved by the chromatographic methods. It is generally used for the purification of low molecular mass compounds from mixture of similar molecules like antibiotics or macromolecules like enzymes. The different chromatographic procedures that can be utilized are your adsorption chromatography, ion exchange chromatography, gel filtration chromatography, hydrophobic chromatography, affinity chromatography, or the partition chromatography. When the product has been isolated and purified, then it has to be dried so that it becomes suitable for handling as well as storage. So the most frequent approaches for drying are your vacuum drying, spray drying, or freeze drying. Thank you.